heard the phrase, life happens. And this could not be more true. Whether it's a machine that breaks, a car repair, job loss, life is going to happen, my friends. And this is the biggest reason why you should have an emergency fund. Hi, welcome back to the Money, Wine and Cheese Club TV. My name is Sara, and as usual, I'm here to talk to you about all things money and life. If you like this kind of content, practical tips on how to organize your money and your life, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Oh, and don't forget to ring the bell so that you will always get notified whenever a video drops, which is usually once a week. Now, let's get into today's video. An emergency fund is not about preparing for disaster. An emergency fund is to give you peace of mind when life happens. That's all it is. An emergency fund allows you to take control of your finances when everything else seems to be going wrong. It will also help you not reach for that credit card in moments of stress. So, how do we go about creating an emergency fund when we barely make ends meet? Let's get into it. Life is unpredictable, my friend. You must think of an emergency fund as your security net. It's there. You sleep good at night, right? You sleep well because you know that whatever life throws at you, well, financially speaking, you got it covered, at least for a short period of time. Now, for a 50-year-old like me, having an emergency fund is crucial. It helps me live the life I want to live and not stress about money. It lets me follow my purpose. It lets me have the life that I always wanted to live. An emergency fund is saying, I'm in control of my finances and I'm ready for whatever life throws at me. So, how much should there be in an emergency fund? Well, it can be anything from 500 to 10,000. Let's break that. If you are just starting out, if you have no money saved, if you do not have an emergency fund, I would highly suggest that you start to save $500. Just $500 to have there as your emergency fund, okay? It's going to take a while. These $500 are going to be the hardest for you to save. Or if you save them really quick, usually something breaks down, you repair it, and you need to start again. You must keep it at 500 for a couple of months and then build it to 1,000. Okay? So when we started out, we started with $1,000 because honestly, everything we were making was to pay debt. So we could not afford to save more and still make a dent on the debt we were paying. We could hardly meet our goals. So we had $1,000 for a very long time. Now, once we got out of debt, once we started looking at our savings, and before I decided to leave my job, we bumped it up to 6 months of expenses. Now, this is a pretty chunk of money, and this money is not to be spent whenever we run out of money, although that might have happened once or twice. And this money is there so that if we get sick, if there's job loss, if all hell breaks through, we can live our life for 6 months without really worrying about it. Of course, I will worry the first day that something happens, but this money is there so that when everything is going well, I don't think about it much because I know I'm okay. So when I say 6 months, it's not like bare bone minimum. It's like full on lifestyle mode, right? It's like what I do today, the money I spend today, my pocket money, whatever it is, I can still do that for 6 months before I run out of money, okay? That is us. For you, this might be $5,000. and you know that you can get by for like a month and a half, and you have that money there, easy grab, okay? Because then you have your savings. Now, this emergency fund should be easy to get to. In a savings account, a simple savings account, not something that you'll be penalized if you get the money out of the account, okay? No long-term savings, that's what I'm saying. Just something that is there and you can get it easily enough. If you're overwhelmed with just, me going on about emergency fund and how much, 6 months, 3 months, don't worry about it. If you're just starting, you just try to get your $500, it's fine. And then once you have that for a couple of months and life's going well, you just bump it up to $1,000, okay? And it's, again, you keep it for a few months. Now, how are we going to get this money? Because let's face it, life's hard, it's expensive, and we don't really have $1,000 lying around. So this is going to take you a little bit of time to build, right? To have those 500 or 1,000. Set your goal. So by when would you like to have this $500 saved? Be honest with yourself and reasonable. The goal you are setting, is it reasonable, or are you just so excited because you're going to start this that you are setting unrealistic goals? That's not good. Set realistic goals. Give yourself a realistic amount of time to save this money. Now, if all you can do is $10 every paycheck, so be it. But also be ruthless with yourself. That money is not to be touched unless there is an emergency. And in emergency, it's not grabbing coffee. Okay? That's not an emergency. An emergency is your dishwasher breaking, is your car breaking, is, something a little bit bigger than coffee. So be ruthless with yourself. Be honest and set those realistic goals, because once you achieve that goal of getting those $500, you'll be motivated and you'll be, you can trust yourself to do it, so you'll keep going and build it to $1,000. Hope this is making sense. Then you should also open a separate savings account. This should be a savings account that you have easy access to. Some people keep their money in a safe because they feel safer having the money there. A regular savings account is just fine, but nothing that locks your money in, okay? Nothing that you are penalized again for taking the money whenever you want to. This should be accessible because, again, this is not our savings. This is just an amount of money that we have for life when it happens. And then, if possible, automate that saving. Yes, automate saving those 10, those 50, those 100, those 25, whatever it is, 12, 14 on your pay date, automate it. Have it sent directly to that savings account that's earmarked with your emergency fund. That's very important because you don't see that money, you will not be thinking about it. Now, don't underestimate the small amounts. They add up, and they add up quickly. So if you are consistent, if 4 times a month, $12 are going into your account, that's $48. And it's going to take you 10 months to get to your $500. Any extra money that you have, just put it in that savings account. Whatever it is, something that you don't need, some leftover money from your budget, put it there. I told you that $48 a month is going to take you 10 months to have $500 on the side for your emergency fund. But let's say you are a go-getter. You want to do this faster. How can you go about it? I'm going to tell you. You can cut all unnecessary expenses. For example, subscriptions. You probably have some that you don't even remember, or that you don't even use. Cut them and send that money, because you are paying that subscription anyway. Put that money into that savings account. That's going to make a really big difference. Let's say you get a tax refund. That's not free money. The government is not giving you money. That is money that you've paid, that you put in the government's bank, and they got interest from your money, and now they're just giving you back what was already yours. So put that money into that savings account. You've given it to the government anyway, so you weren't counting on it. Put it into that savings account for your emergency fund, and that might bump it up straight away to whatever you need, your 500 or even your 1,000, okay? That's going to help a lot. You can sell stuff you have around your house. If that's something that you enjoy, please go about it. Some people get a lot of money for stuff that they no longer use, that is not doing nothing for them, but that are treasures for other people. So don't underestimate selling your stuff online. Start a side hustle. You have the time, you have interests. Maybe you have an interest that can make you a little extra money. Now, I always caution you, don't be like me and start businesses that are just pure hobbies because you enjoy them and you have no intention whatsoever to sell anything. So do not spend more money than you're going to make with a side hustle. A side hustle needs to make you money, and you have no money right now to spend. So don't spend money thinking about the money that you could potentially make doing that. Now that you've started creating your emergency fund, I think it's important that we look at what is an emergency fund and what it's not. An emergency fund should only be used with unexpected expenses, not recurring living expenses that you have every single month or year even. So a real emergency would be unplanned medical bills, car repairs, job loss, home repairs, and family emergencies. Your kids, your parents, you, whatever. Now, what isn't an emergency fund? Vacation, new gadgets, impulse buys, and again, all those expenses, living expenses that should be in your budget and should not be an emergency because you know they are coming. You are expecting them to show up. Getting back to the emergency fund, one of the reasons that I defend and that I think everybody should have an emergency fund, it's because it actually keeps us from reaching for a credit card. Now, if you've been here long enough, you know that I'm not a credit card person because that's what got me into trouble. I had a lot of credit card debt and it was a nightmare, and it was a nightmare to get rid of it. So I don't have a credit card. That's not to say that you are not the responsible or adult that can perfectly have a credit card and be responsible with that card. I couldn't and I wasn't. So I don't use credit cards. Now, today, could I have a credit card and be responsible? I don't know. But guess what? It was such a painful experience for me that I do not want to find out. I'm not even curious to know if I could handle it or not. I know that I couldn't back then, and I just don't want to put that kind of pressure on myself. You know, a credit card always comes with a very high interest rate. And if you are responsible and you pay for it at the end of the month, awesome, use it, if you feel more comfortable doing that. But if you don't, you will be charged from 18 to 27% interest a month. And that will turn into a nightmare if you keep having a balance at the end of the month. That's my biggest reason to always have an emergency fund, so that people are not tempted to grab a credit card that they will not have money to pay in full by the end of the month. Now, should you stop building your emergency fund when you reach 500 or 1,000 or 3 months of expenses or 6 months of living expenses? Well, I didn't get to 6 months of living expenses in a year or even in 2 years because we have very high living costs where we live. No, and that's what I was talking about. So I keep building on it, and once it's over the amount of money that I feel comfortable with having for my 6 months of living expenses, I grab that money and I invest it and I put it in a long-term savings account or whatever I choose to do with it. But I never keep building that emergency fund, because for me, I find it's easier to see that money is in that account and that it's growing than to just send it somewhere, okay? So that's the way I do it. But that's not to say that I couldn't have 1 year of living expenses. Of course I could. That's not our goal. We haven't even needed 3 months, let alone 6. So I'm not going for a year right now. But there are other savings behind all of this. So if you do not have any savings, this is one way that you can build your long-term savings as well. Start creating that retirement fund. Start creating a sinking fund for something you want to buy down the line. That can all start from this emergency fund that you have there, again, not because you are planning for catastrophe, but because it lets you sleep at night, because you know that if your car breaks down, it's not even an emergency anymore, it's an inconvenience because you have to take care of it, but you have the money to pay for it. And that's very important, especially for someone who needs their car as a means of transportation to go to work. That's all I have for you today, so thank you so much for joining me. Remember, an emergency fund is there to give you peace of mind. At the end of the day, that's all that it is. And to let you sleep at night. Again, thank you so much for being with me, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye!